Some truths are too heavy for adults to carry. Lily Carson, a 10-year-old girl born to wealth and privilege, had everything money could buy, yet saw what her parents refused to acknowledge. Then a kind garbage man named Elijah made the grave error of accepting her birthday invitation. A wooden box. A crumpled deed, a family's buried crimes exposed by innocent eyes. Her father never realized the reckoning would come from his own daughter, that his empire built on stolen dreams would crumble at the hands of a child who still believed in fairness. As the powerful fell and justice awakened, the truth emerged. Lily Carson wasn't just fighting for a friend, she was fighting for the soul of her family. Just before we get back to it, I'd love to know where you're watching from today, and if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow's special episode is one you definitely don't want to miss. The morning sun bathed Magnolia Avenue in a soft golden light as 10-year-old Lily Carson sat on the front steps of her family's sprawling mansion. Her small hands clutched a pink sketchbook, pencil moving across the page as she waited. Every Thursday morning at precisely 7:45 a.m., the familiar rumble of the garbage truck would echo down their tree-lined street, and Lily would be ready. Today was no different. Lily tucked a strand of blonde hair behind her ear, her blue eyes focused. On her drawing, a picture of a puppy she desperately wanted but her parents kept refusing. The distant grumble of an engine made her head snap up, a smile spreading across her freckled face. She set her sketchbook aside and bounced to her feet. The large green garbage truck lumbered down the street, stopping at each immaculate driveway. Behind the wheel sat Mr. Elijah Booker, an elderly black man with kind eyes and a smile that made the deep lines on his weathered face crinkle like tissue paper. He wore the same faded blue uniform every week, along with a well-worn cap that had seen better days. "Mr. Elijah," Lily called out, waving enthusiastically as the truck pulled up to their driveway. Elijah brought the truck to a stop and climbed down from the cab, his movements slow but deliberate. "Well, good morning, Miss Lily," he said, tipping his cap to her. "Beautiful day, isn't it? The best." Lily skipped down the remaining steps to meet him. "I made something for you." She thrust out a folded piece of paper from her sketchbook. Elijah accepted it with careful hands, unfolding it to reveal a crayon drawing of himself next to his garbage truck, both surrounded by colorful flowers and a bright yellow sun. "Well now," he said, his voice warm with genuine appreciation. "This might be the finest artwork I've seen all week." "It's to say thank you for always being nice to me," Lily explained. "Mom says I talk too much, but you always listen." "Listening is one of life's greatest gifts," Elijah said, as he tucked the drawing carefully into his shirt pocket. "And yours is a voice worth hearing, Miss Lily." From inside the mansion, the sharp voice of Victoria Carson cut through their conversation. "Lily, inside this instant. Your breakfast is getting cold." Lily's shoulders slumped slightly. "I have to go. Mom doesn't like when I'm out here too long." "Best not keep her waiting," Elijah nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Thank you for my drawing. I'll keep it safe." As Lily turned to go, she paused. "Mr. Elijah, do you like cake? My birthday is next week, and Mom ordered this huge strawberry cake with pink frosting. It's going to be amazing, is that so?" Elijah chuckled. "Well, strawberry happens to be my favorite." "You should come," Lily blurted out, bouncing on her toes. "It's next Saturday at 2 o'clock. There'll be a bouncy castle and pony rides and everything." Elijah's smile faltered for just a moment. "That's mighty kind of you, Miss Lily, but I don't think—" "Lily Carson." Victoria appeared at the door, her slender frame rigid with disapproval. She wore a pristine white blouse tucked into tailored pants, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun. "I will not call you again." "Coming, Mom," Lily called back. She turned to Elijah once more. "Please think about it. It won't be as fun without you." With that, she dashed back up the steps, leaving Elijah standing beside his truck, uncertainty written across his face. Inside the mansion, Victoria waited with arms crossed. "What have I told you about conversing with the help, Lily? Especially that man." "He's not the help, Mom. His name is Mr. Elijah, and he's my friend," Lily protested, her small voice carrying a stubborn edge. Victoria's perfectly manicured fingers gripped Lily's shoulder, steering her toward the dining room. He collects our garbage, Lily. That does not make him a friend. Now go eat your breakfast before it's stone cold. At the long mahogany dining table, Charles Carson sat reading the morning newspaper, his imposing figure practically radiating authority. At 52, Charles had built Carson Developments into one of the most successful real estate companies in the state. His silver-streaked dark hair and expensive suit projected the image of success he so carefully cultivated. "There's my birthday girl," Charles said without looking up from his paper. "Only 9 days to go. Excited about your party?" "Yes, Daddy," Lily answered, sliding into her chair. The cook, Mrs. Bennett, placed a plate of eggs and toast in front of her. "I invited Mr. Elijah to come." The newspaper lowered. Charles exchanged a look with Victoria, who had just taken her seat at the opposite end of the table. "You did what?" "The garbage man," Victoria explained, her voice tight. "She's developed some sort of fascination with him." Charles folded his newspaper with deliberate movements. "Lily, sweetheart, you can't just invite people like that to your birthday party. The guests will be from our circle, important people with important connections." "But Mr. Elijah is important to me," Lily insisted, pushing her eggs around her plate. "And Grandma Rose always says we should be kind to everyone." At the mention of Rose Foster, Victoria's mother, a flash of annoyance crossed Victoria's face. "My mother has many outdated notions about society. When you're older, you'll understand how the world actually works." "Your mother is coming to the party, I presume?" Charles asked Victoria, changing the subject. "Unfortunately, yes. I could hardly exclude her without causing talk," Victoria sighed, "though I've asked her to tone down her charitable sensibilities for the afternoon." Lily perked up. "Grandma Rose is coming? You didn't tell me." "It slipped my mind," Victoria said dismissively. "Finish your breakfast, Lily. Miss Jenkins will be here in 30 minutes for your piano lesson." As breakfast concluded, Charles gathered his briefcase. "I'll be home late tonight. Big meeting with the investors for the Riverside project." "The one by Mr. Elijah's neighborhood?" Lily asked innocently. Charles paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "How do you know where he lives?" "He told me. He said he's lived there his whole life in a blue house with white shutters that he built himself because he used to be a carpenter before." "That's quite enough, Lily," Victoria interrupted. "Your father is very busy. Run along and get ready for your lesson." After Lily left the room, Charles turned to Victoria. "She's spending too much time talking to that man. It's inappropriate." "I've told her repeatedly," Victoria said, "but she's stubborn, just like my mother." "Speaking of the Riverside project," Charles lowered his voice, "Grayson says we're almost ready to move forward. Once those final properties sign over, construction begins immediately." "And if they don't sign?" Victoria asked, taking a delicate sip of her coffee. A cold smile crossed Charles's face. "Everyone has a price, my dear, or a pressure point. Either way, by summer's end, those properties will be ours." 3 days later, Lily sat on a bench in the garden with her grandmother, Rose Foster, a warm and elegant woman in her 70s. Unlike Victoria's rigid posture and cool demeanor, Rose exuded genuine warmth. Her silver hair framed a face lined with laugh lines, and her eyes, the same bright blue as Lily's, twinkled with mischief and wisdom. "So this Mr. Elijah," Rose said, helping Lily string beads onto a bracelet they were making together. "Tell me more about your friend." Lily's face lit up. "He's the kindest person, Grandma. He listens to all my stories and never rushes me, and he knows everything about birds. Last week he showed me a cardinal nest in Mrs. Wilson's tree." Rose smiled. "He sounds wonderful, sweetheart." "But Mom and Dad don't like when I talk to him," Lily confided, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Mom says he's beneath us, whatever that means. And yesterday, I heard Dad talking on the phone about Mr. Elijah's neighborhood, saying something about clearing out the undesirables." A shadow crossed Rose's face. "Your father's business dealings aren't always kind, Lily, but that doesn't mean you have to follow their example. Kindness matters more than money, though few in your parents' circle would agree. That's why I invited Mr. Elijah to my party," Lily declared proudly. To show Mom and Dad that he's a good person. Rose hesitated. Lily, sweetheart, while your heart is in the right place, your parents might not react well to that. But you always say we should stand up for what's right, Lily pointed out. Yes, I do, Rose sighed, patting Lily's hand. Just be prepared that sometimes doing the right thing isn't easy. People can be resistant to change, especially people like your parents who have very fixed ideas about how the world should work. Later, that evening at dinner, Charles was unusually animated, describing his latest business triumph to Victoria, while Lily pushed food around her plate. The Riverside project is practically a done deal, Charles announced, cutting into his steak. Once we've secured the remaining properties, including that stubborn cluster near the old carpenter's shop, we'll begin demolition immediately. How are you handling the holdouts? Victoria asked, seemingly genuinely interested in her husband's business for once. Charles chuckled. Grayson found some discrepancies in the city's record-keeping. Apparently, several property deeds were improperly filed decades ago. A technical error, but enough to call ownership into question. And the courts will side with you? Victoria raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. With Judge Patterson presiding? Absolutely. He's been a loyal friend to Carson Developments for years. Charles took a sip of his wine. Besides, who's going to believe some uneducated workers over a respected businessman, particularly when those workers can't afford decent legal representation? Lily looked up from her plate. What happens to the people who live there now, Daddy? Charles waved a dismissive hand. They'll relocate. That's progress, sweetheart. The old makes way for the new. That's how we built our fortune. But what if they don't want to leave their homes? Lily persisted. Lily, Victoria warned, your father's business isn't a suitable topic for children. I'm just curious, Lily mumbled, returning to her food. Charles regarded his daughter with mild amusement. The world doesn't run on what people want, Princess. It runs on power and money. The sooner you understand that, the better off you'll be. The day before Lily's birthday party, she snuck out to the end of the driveway, knowing Mr. Elijah's truck would be passing by. When the familiar green vehicle rumbled into view, she waved both arms overhead until it stopped. Elijah climbed down, concern etched on his face. Miss Lily, what are you doing out here by yourself? Does your mama know? Lily shook her head. I wanted to make sure you're coming tomorrow, to my party. Elijah removed his cap, turning it in his weathered hands. I don't think that would be wise, Miss Lily. Your parents, they wouldn't approve of someone like me attending. But I want you there, Lily insisted. Please. I made a special seat for you and everything. Elijah looked into her earnest face and sighed. You remind me of my granddaughter. She would have been about your age now. A hint of sadness crossed his features before he continued. Tell you what, I'll stop by just for a little while, but if your parents object, I'll leave right away. Deal? Lily beamed, practically bouncing with excitement. Deal, and I can't wait to meet your granddaughter too. A pain flashed across Elijah's face. She's not with us anymore, Miss Lily. Lily's excitement dimmed. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Elijah. It's all right. It was a long time ago. He placed his cap back on his head. Now you better get back inside, before you're missed. As Lily started back toward the house, Elijah called after her. Miss Lily, I'm making something special for your birthday, something I think you'll like. Lily's smile returned, brighter than ever. I can't wait. Saturday afternoon arrived with perfect weather for Lily's birthday party. The Carson estate had been transformed into a child's paradise. A massive bounce house dominated one side of the sprawling lawn, while pony rides circled a fenced area near the garden. Caterers bustled about, setting up tables laden with food and drinks, and at the center of it all stood an enormous three-tiered strawberry cake with pink frosting, exactly as Lily had described to Mr. Elijah. Inside the mansion, Victoria directed, staff with military precision while Charles greeted early arrivals, prominent business associates, city officials, and other influential families, all with children around Lily's age. Rose Foster arrived early, bearing a modestly wrapped gift, and a warm smile that dimmed slightly upon seeing the excessive display of wealth. Victoria, don't you think this is a bit much for a 10-year-old's birthday? Victoria barely glanced at her mother. It's never too early for Lily to understand her place in society. These connections will serve her well in the future. She's, a child, not a networking opportunity, Rose countered gently. Mother, please, not today, Victoria sighed. Why don't you go find Lily? She's upstairs getting ready. Rose found her granddaughter in her bedroom, twirling in front of the mirror in a pale pink dress that likely cost more than most people's monthly salary. You look beautiful, sweetheart. Lily's face lit up. Grandma! She rushed over for a hug. Do you think Mr. Elijah will like my party? Rose blinked in surprise. The gentleman you mentioned? He's coming? I invited him special. Lily nodded proudly. I even put a chair for him next to mine at the table. Rose knelt to Lily's level. Sweetheart, does your mother know about this? Sort of, Lily hedged. I told her I invited him, but she didn't think he'd come. But he promised he would, at least for a little while. Rose sighed, knowing exactly how Victoria and Charles would react. Lily, I want you to be prepared. Your parents might not be as welcoming to Mr. Elijah as you hope. But it's my birthday, Lily reasoned with a child's logic. And he's my friend. I know, sweetheart. Rose smoothed Lily's hair. Just remember, no matter what happens today, being kind to others is always the right choice. I'm proud of you for seeing the goodness in people that others might miss. The party was in full swing by 2 o'clock. Children ran across the lawn, laughing and playing, while their parents clustered in groups, networking under the guise of casual conversation. Lily moved among the guests, accepting birthday wishes with practiced politeness, but her eyes kept drifting to the driveway, watching for Mr. Elijah. At 2:30, a hush fell over one section of the party. Heads turned. Whispers began, and Lily knew without looking that her friend had arrived. She raced across the lawn, dodging other children and ignoring Victoria's sharp call of her name. Elijah stood at the edge of the property, looking distinctly uncomfortable, but undeniably dignified. He had traded his work uniform for a clean button-down shirt and pressed slacks, both slightly faded, but immaculately maintained. In his hands, he carried a small wooden box, lovingly polished and adorned with hand-carved flowers around the edges. Mr. Elijah, you came. Lily grabbed his hand, pulling him forward. Come on, I saved you a seat by me. Happy birthday, Miss Lily, Elijah said, allowing himself to be led into the party. I can't stay long, but I wanted to give you this. He handed her the wooden box. Made it myself. It's for keeping special treasures. Lily gasped as she opened it, revealing a velvet-lined interior with a small compartment. It's beautiful. Did you really make this? I did. Carpentry was my trade for 40 years before. He trailed off as Victoria materialized before them, her face a mask of barely contained rage. Lily, Victoria said, her voice artificially sweet. What is going on here? Mom, Mr. Elijah came to my party. Isn't that wonderful? Lily beamed, oblivious to the tension radiating from her mother. Victoria's gaze never left Elijah. I'm sure Mr. Booker is very busy and just stopped by to drop off your gift. Isn't that right, Mr. Booker? Before Elijah could respond, Lily interjected. No, Mom. I invited him to stay. I saved him a seat and everything. By now, the nearby guests had fallen silent, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of discomfort and morbid curiosity. Charles, sensing the disruption, excused himself from a conversation with the mayor and strode toward them, his face darkening as he recognized Elijah. What is the meaning of this? Charles demanded, positioning himself between Elijah and Lily. I invited him, Daddy, Lily explained, clutching the wooden box to her chest. Mr. Elijah is my friend. Charles's forced laugh sent chills down Lily's spine. Sweetheart, this is hardly appropriate. Mr. Booker is here to work, not to socialize. Actually, sir, Elijah spoke for the first time, his voice steady despite the hostility directed at him. I was invited by Miss Lily as a guest. I meant no disrespect. No disrespect? Charles repeated incredulously. You show up uninvited to a private function. He was invited, Lily insisted, tears welling in her eyes. By a child who doesn't understand propriety, Victoria hissed, grabbing Lily's arm. Come along, Lily, your friends are waiting for you. Lily struggled against her mother's grip. No, I want Mr. Elijah to stay. Rose Foster appeared beside them, her presence bringing a momentary pause to the escalating scene. Victoria, Charles, perhaps we could discuss this privately, away from the other guests. Charles ignored his mother-in-law, his attention fixed on Elijah. I suggest you leave my property immediately, Booker, before I have security escort you out. I understand. Elijah nodded, his dignity intact despite the humiliation. I didn't come to cause trouble. He looked down at Lily, whose tears were now flowing freely. It's all right, Miss Lily. You enjoy your party now. Wait, Victoria said suddenly, her eyes falling on the wooden box in Lily's hands. What's this? Did he give this to you? Before Lily could protect it, Victoria snatched the box from her grasp, examining it with exaggerated disgust. Handmade? How quaint. Her lip curled as she opened it. And what's this? Victoria reached inside, pulling out a small folded piece of paper that had been tucked into the compartment. She unfolded it, her eyes scanning the content before narrowing dangerously. What is the meaning of this? She demanded, thrusting the paper toward Elijah. Is this some kind of joke? Elijah's expression remained calm, though his eyes reflected a deep sadness. No joke, Mrs. Carson. Just a reminder of the truth, which some have worked very hard to bury. Charles snatched the paper from Victoria's hand, his face contorting with fury as he read it. You dare bring this to my daughter's birthday party? You miserable? What is it, Daddy? Lily asked, confused and frightened by her parents' reaction. Nothing that concerns you. Charles crumpled the paper in his fist. He turned to Elijah, voice dropping to a menacing whisper that only those closest could hear. You're playing a dangerous game, Booker, one you're guaranteed to lose. Mr. Carson, Elijah said evenly, I've already lost nearly everything, but there's one thing you can't take from me, the truth. And sooner or later, the truth always finds its way to the light. Charles grabbed Elijah by the collar, his control slipping. Get off my property now, or I swear to God. Charles, Rose's sharp voice cut through his rage. There are children present. With visible effort, Charles released Elijah's shirt, smoothing his own suit as he composed himself. Security, he called to the two men stationed near the house. Please escort Mr. Booker to the gate. No, Lily cried, breaking free from Victoria's grasp and running to Elijah's side. Please don't make him go. It's all right, Miss Lily, Elijah said gently, bending down to her level. Some parties aren't meant for everyone. You have a wonderful birthday now, you hear? And remember, he glanced meaningfully at the wooden box Victoria had discarded on a nearby table. Treasures aren't always what they seem. As security approached, Rose stepped forward. I'll walk Mr. Booker out. There's no need for this display. Charles started to object, but Rose fixed him with a look that, despite her age and smaller stature, brooked no argument. I insist. As Rose and Elijah walked toward the gate, Lily tried to follow, but Victoria gripped her arm firmly. Enough, Lily. You've caused quite enough of a scene for one day. He was just being nice, Lily sobbed. Why are you so mean to him? Victoria knelt, wiping Lily's tears with uncharacteristic gentleness. Darling, there are things you don't understand yet. People like Mr. Booker. They want what we have. They're jealous of our success. That's not true, Lily protested. He just wanted to give me a birthday present. A present with strings attached, Charles muttered, still clutching the crumpled paper. Victoria, take Lily inside to clean up. We can't have the birthday girl looking like this in front of our guests. As Victoria led her away, Lily looked back to see Rose and Elijah in deep conversation by the gate. Whatever they were discussing, both looked grave. Just before he left, Elijah glanced back at the party, his eyes finding Lily's for one brief moment. He gave her a small, sad smile and a nod, as if silently communicating something important. Inside the house, Victoria brought Lily to the bathroom to wash her face. "I don't understand why you're so attached to that man," Victoria sighed, dabbing at Lily's cheeks with a damp cloth. "Because he's kind to me," Lily said simply. "And he makes beautiful things with his hands, like my treasure box." Victoria's expression hardened. "Well, your father has disposed of that inappropriate gift. You'll have plenty of proper presents from our friends. What was on that paper, Mom? The one that made Dad so angry?" For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Victoria's face. "Nothing important. Just nonsense meant to cause trouble. Now, let's fix your hair and get back to your party. Everyone's waiting." When they returned outside, the staff had done an admirable job of restoring the festive atmosphere. Children were back to playing games, and adults had resumed their conversations, though an undercurrent of gossip was palpable. Rose had returned and sat alone at a table, watching the proceedings with a troubled expression. Charles intercepted Victoria and Lily before they could rejoin the party. "Everything's under control," he assured them, though Lily noticed his hand shaking slightly as he straightened his tie. "I've explained that Mr. Booker was confused about his schedule. No one needs to know he was uninvited." "And the paper?" Victoria asked quietly. "Destroyed," Charles confirmed. "But we'll need to deal with this situation. Soon." "Agreed." Victoria nodded, her usual composure restored. "But not today. Today is about Lily." As if on cue, the party coordinator announced it was time for cake. Guests gathered around the elaborate dessert as staff lit 10 candles. Everyone sang, "Happy Birthday," and Lily blew out the flames to enthusiastic applause. But her heart wasn't in it. While the cake was being served, Lily slipped away to the table where Victoria had left the wooden box. To her relief, it was still there, though the mysterious paper was gone. She picked it up, running her fingers over the intricately carved flowers, marveling at the craftsmanship. As she did, something caught her eye, a small notch on the bottom of the box that didn't seem to match the rest of the design. Curious, Lily pressed it. There was a soft click, and to her amazement, a hidden compartment slid open, revealing another folded piece of paper. Heart racing, Lily quickly tucked it into her dress pocket just as Victoria called her name. "Coming, Mom," she replied, closing the box and hiding it behind a planter. She would retrieve it later when no one was watching. Throughout the remainder of her party, Lily went through the motions, opening presents, thanking guests, and participating in games, but her mind kept returning to the hidden paper in her pocket and the look on Mr. Elijah's face as he left. Something important had happened today, something beyond a simple birthday party gone wrong, and somehow, Lily knew her life would never be the same. As the last guest departed and the staff cleared away the remnants of Lily's birthday party, an unusual silence fell over the Carson mansion. Normally, after hosting successful events, Victoria would glow with satisfaction, and Charles would celebrate another networking triumph. Today, however, both parents retreated to Charles's study, their hushed voices carrying an edge of panic that Lily had never heard before. Lily sat on her bedroom floor. The carved wooden box opened beside her as she carefully unfolded the hidden paper she'd discovered. Unlike the document her father had confiscated, this one was smaller, a portion of what appeared to be an old property deed. The yellowed paper felt delicate between her fingers, and though much of the legal terminology confused her, a few things stood out clearly. Elijah Booker's name, an address on Maple Street in the Riverside neighborhood, and a date from 30 years ago. A soft knock on her door made Lily hastily fold the paper and tuck it under her pillow. "Come in," she called. Grandma Rose entered, carrying a small plate with a slice of birthday cake. "I thought you might want this," she said, setting the plate on Lily's nightstand. "You barely touched any at your party." "I wasn't hungry," Lily mumbled, leaning against her bed. Rose sat down beside her on the floor, her knees creaking slightly. "That was quite a scene. Today." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "They were so mean to Mr. Elijah, Grandma, and for no reason. He just wanted to give me a birthday present." Rose wrapped an arm around Lily's shoulders. Sometimes adults behave badly when they're protecting something they don't want others to know. Like a secret? Lily asked. Exactly like a secret, Rose nodded. And from the way your parents reacted, I'd say it's a big one. Lily hesitated, then reached under her pillow and pulled out the hidden paper. I found this inside Mr. Elijah's box. There's a secret compartment. Rose's eyes widened as she examined the document fragment. Oh my, she breathed. Lily, where's the box now? I hid it behind the planter on the patio. Dad said he threw it away, but he meant the first paper Mr. Elijah put inside. Rose returned the document to Lily. Keep this safe, sweetheart. I have a feeling it's very important. What does it mean, Grandma? It has Mr. Elijah's name on it. I think, Rose said carefully, it might be proof that Mr. Elijah once owned property in Riverside. Property your father is now claiming as his own for that big development project. Lily's forehead wrinkled in confusion. But how could Daddy take Mr. Elijah's property? Isn't that stealing? In the grown-up world, sweetheart, stealing sometimes wears a business suit and carries a briefcase. Rose sighed. Listen, I need to make a few phone calls. Why don't you get ready for bed? It's been a long day. After Rose left, Lily couldn't settle. Her mind kept returning to the confrontation at the party, to the rage in her father's eyes when he saw whatever was on that first piece of paper. Carefully, she crept out of her room and down the hallway toward her father's study. The door was slightly ajar, and Charles and Victoria's voices drifted out. Should have handled that filthy carpenter years ago, Victoria was saying. Now, he's making a scene at our daughter's birthday party. He's desperate, Charles replied, the ice in his scotch glass clinking as he paced. The final hearing is next week. Once Judge Patterson rules in our favor, Booker and the rest of them will have no legal recourse. And if he shows that document to someone who actually listens, that torn-up deed? It's incomplete, Charles dismissed. Besides, without the original records from the county assessor's office, which mysteriously disappeared in that convenient fire last year, it's just the ramblings of a disgruntled old man. And Grayson? Victoria asked. Can he be trusted to keep quiet about his role in all this? The mere mention of the name made Lily lean closer to the door. Mr. Grayson was her father's business partner, a tall, thin man with cold eyes who always gave Lily candy she wasn't allowed to eat. Grayson knows which side his bread is buttered on, Charles scoffed. Besides, he's in too deep himself. If I go down, he goes down harder. Victoria's voice lowered. And what about your mother-in-law? She seemed awfully friendly with Booker as she escorted him out. Rose? Charles laughed dismissively. She's a bleeding heart with no real influence. What could she possibly do? She has friends in the Historical Society, Victoria pointed out. People who might care about the original deeds to properties in Riverside. A heavy silence followed, broken by the sound of Charles setting down his glass with force. I'll have Grayson pay her a visit. Remind her of the generous allowance we provide, and how quickly that could disappear if she involves herself in matters that don't concern her. Lily gasped, then immediately clapped her hand over her mouth. But it was too late. The conversation inside the study stopped abruptly. Did you hear something? Victoria asked sharply. Heart pounding, Lily darted back down the hall and around the corner just as the study door swung open. She pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe as her father's heavy footsteps moved in her direction, then paused. Probably just the staff, Charles finally said, his voice fading as he returned to the study. Lily didn't wait to hear more. She crept back to her room, her mind racing with what she'd overheard. Her parents were planning something bad, something that involved Mr. Elijah's home and Grandma Rose. But what could she, a 10-year-old girl, possibly do about it? The answer came to her as she spotted the wooden box she'd retrieved from the planter and hidden under her bed. Mr. Elijah had given it to her for a reason. The hidden compartment, the torn deed. They were clues. He was trying to tell her something important, something her parents didn't want anyone to know. That night, Lily barely slept. She kept the wooden box close, one hand resting on it as if to protect it from being taken away. When morning finally came, she had made a decision. She needed to find Mr. Elijah and learn the whole truth. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. At breakfast, Charles announced he had an emergency meeting at the office and would be gone most of the day. On a Sunday? Rose questioned, buttering her toast with deliberate slowness. The business world doesn't observe weekends, Mother, Victoria replied coldly. Some of us have real responsibilities. Indeed, Rose murmured, exchanging a quick glance with Lily. After breakfast, Victoria retreated to her home office to review plans for an upcoming charity gala, leaving Lily ostensibly in the care of Mrs. Bennett, the housekeeper. But Mrs. Bennett was busy directing the staff in cleaning up the last of the party decorations, giving Lily the perfect opportunity to slip away to the garden with Rose. "Grandma," Lily whispered once they were seated on a bench far from the house. "I heard Mom and Dad talking last night. They said mean things about Mr. Elijah, and about you too." Rose's expression remained calm, but her eyes sharpened. "Did they? Now? What sort of things?" Lily relayed what she'd overheard, the missing records, the upcoming hearing, the threats against Rose's allowance. As she spoke, her grandmother's face grew increasingly troubled. "I suspected as much," Rose sighed. When Lily finished, "Your father's Riverside project has always seemed irregular to me. Now I understand why. What's happening, Grandma? Why is Dad being so mean to Mr. Elijah?" Rose considered her words carefully. "Your father wants to build expensive new houses where old ones currently stand. To do that, he needs the people living there to leave. Some agreed to sell their homes, but others, like Mr. Elijah, have refused." "So Dad's trying to force them out?" Lily asked, her young face scrunching in concentration. "It appears he's found a way to question whether they ever truly owned their homes in the first place," Rose explained. "It's complicated, sweetheart, and not very honest." "We need to help Mr. Elijah," Lily declared. "He needs to know about the paper I found." Rose placed a gentle hand on Lily's arm. "This is a very serious situation, Lily. Your parents would be furious if they knew you were involved. Perhaps you should let me handle this." But Lily shook her head firmly. "Mr. Elijah is my friend, Grandma. He trusted me with his special box. I need to help him." After a long moment, Rose nodded. "You have your grandfather's sense of justice. He would be proud." She checked her watch. "I need to make some calls. Why don't you go inside for a while? We'll talk more this afternoon." Reluctantly, Lily returned to the house. As she passed the kitchen, she overheard Mrs. Bennett talking to one of the maids, their voices low but clear. "Saw it with my own eyes," Mrs. Bennett was saying. "Poor Mr. Booker, humiliated in front of all those fancy folks. And now I hear Mr. Carson is sending Grayson to handle the situation this afternoon." "What does that mean?" the maid asked nervously. "Nothing good," Mrs. Bennett replied grimly. "Last time Grayson handled something for Mr. Carson, the Thompson family's apartment mysteriously caught fire the next day." Lily's blood ran cold. Without thinking, she burst into the kitchen. "Mrs. Bennett, is Mr. Elijah in danger?" Both women jumped, exchanging guilty looks. "Miss Lily," Mrs. Bennett recovered quickly, "you shouldn't be eavesdropping on adult conversations. Please," Lily begged, "I need to know where Mr. Elijah lives. I have to warn him." "Now, child," Mrs. Bennett said gently, "this isn't something for you to worry about. Why don't you go practice your piano until lunchtime?" But Lily stood her ground, her small hands balled into fists at her sides. "Mr. Elijah is my friend. If something bad happens to him because of my dad, it'll be my fault too." Mrs. Bennett's stern expression softened. She glanced at the doorway to make sure no one else was listening, then knelt to Lily's level. "Mr. Booker lives at 427 Maple Street in Riverside. It's a blue house with white shutters, just like he told you. But Miss Lily, you cannot go there by yourself. It's too far, and your parents would have my job if anything happened to you." "I won't," Lily lied, her mind already racing ahead. "I just wanted to know he's okay." Mrs. Bennett studied her face, clearly unconvinced. "Promise me you'll stay on the property today." "I promise," Lily nodded solemnly. crossing her fingers behind her back. As soon as she could slip away unnoticed, Lily ran back to the garden to find Rose, but her grandmother was nowhere to be seen. A staff member informed her that Mrs. Foster had left to run errands and would return in a few hours. Lily's heart sank. She couldn't wait that long, not if Mr. Grayson was headed to Elijah's house that afternoon. Taking a deep breath, she made a decision that she knew would get her into more trouble than she'd ever been in before. She packed the wooden box and the hidden document in her backpack, along with a water bottle and some cookies from the kitchen. Then, while Victoria was on a conference call and the staff was busy with the party cleanup, Lily slipped out the side gate and headed toward the bus stop at the end of their street. Lily had never taken a public bus by herself before, but she'd ridden them with Rose on their occasional adventure days downtown. She knew she needed the number 16 bus to reach Riverside, and she had $5 in birthday money tucked into her pocket. Her heart pounded as she climbed aboard, trying to act like this was perfectly normal. "Riverside, please," she told the driver, her voice surprisingly steady as she handed over her money. The driver raised an eyebrow but said nothing as he gave her the change. Lily chose a seat near the front and clutched her backpack to her chest, trying to ignore the concerned looks from other passengers. A middle-aged woman sat down beside her. "Are you traveling alone, sweetheart?" the woman asked kindly. Lily had prepared for this. "My grandma is meeting me at the Riverside stop," she explained. "She lives in the blue house on Maple Street." The woman seemed satisfied with this answer and returned to her book. Lily gazed out the window as the neighborhoods gradually changed, from the manicured estates of her own area to more modest homes, and finally to the older, smaller houses of Riverside. When the bus reached her stop, Lily thanked the driver and stepped off, momentarily overwhelmed by the unfamiliar surroundings. Riverside wasn't at all like the rundown neighborhood her parents had described. The homes were older, yes, but most were well-maintained, with flourishing gardens and children playing in the yards. Following the street signs, Lily made her way to Maple Street. Her steps slowed as she approached number 427, a neat blue house with white shutters, just as described. The front yard featured a small vegetable garden and a workshop off to one side, likely where Mr. Elijah practiced his carpentry. Gathering her courage, Lily walked up to the front door and knocked. Long moments passed with no answer. She knocked, again louder this time. "He ain't home, little miss," called a voice from next door. An elderly woman stood on her porch, watching Lily curiously. "Elijah left in a hurry about an hour ago. Seemed upset about something." Lily's heart sank. "Do you know where he went?" The neighbor shook her head. "He mentioned something about the community center. That's where folks around here go when there's trouble." "Where's the community center?" Lily asked desperately. 3 blocks that way, then turn right," the woman pointed. "But child, should you be wandering around here by yourself?" "I'm meeting my grandma," Lily called over her shoulder, already, hurrying in the direction indicated. The Riverside Community Center was a modest brick building with a small playground beside it. As Lily approached, she could see people gathered inside through the large front windows. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. About 20 adults stood in the main room, their voices raised in concerned discussion. Lily spotted Mr. Elijah immediately. He stood near a table covered with papers, talking intently with a tall black woman in a neat business suit. Neither noticed Lily's entrance, but another familiar face did. "Lily Carson?" Grandma Rose's shocked voice cut through the conversation as she stepped forward from the group. "What on earth are you doing here, and alone?" The room fell silent, all eyes turning to the small blonde girl in the doorway. Elijah's face registered disbelief, then concern. "Miss Lily? How did you get here?" "I took the bus," Lily explained, moving forward. "I had to find you, Mr. Elijah. I heard Dad and Mr. Grayson are planning something bad, and I found this in your box." She pulled out the hidden document. "I thought it might help." Rose hurried to Lily's side, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. "I left the house to come here directly. I had no idea Lily would follow." The woman in the business suit stepped forward, extending her hand to take the document from Lily. "I'm Andrea Wilson, an attorney with the Legal Aid Society." We've been helping the Riverside residents fight the Carson development project. She examined the paper, her expression growing increasingly interested. This is part of the original. Deed to your property, Mr. Booker. Where did you find this? I didn't, Elijah said slowly, looking at Lily with newfound respect. I placed a different document in the box. A copy of the letter from the city claiming my deed was invalid. This must have been in the hidden compartment already. Hidden compartment? Lily asked, confused. You mean you didn't put it there? Elijah shook his head. That box belonged to my father. He was always hiding important papers around the house. I chose it for your gift because of the craftsmanship, but I never knew it had a secret space. Andrea Wilson was examining the document closely. This could be crucial evidence, Mr. Booker. Combined with the testimonies we've gathered about the suspicious fire at the county records office, we might have enough to request a postponement of Wednesday's hearing. But that won't stop Grayson, Rose interjected. I overheard Charles instructing him to take care of the situation this afternoon. Elijah's face darkened. Wouldn't be the first time Carson sent that snake to threaten me. We should call the police, someone suggested. And tell them what? Another voice countered. That we have a bad feeling? The police in this town don't help people like us against people like Carson. Lily, feeling overwhelmed by the adult conversation, tugged on Rose's sleeve. Grandma, I'm scared. What's going to happen to Mr. Elijah? Rose knelt down to Lily's level. We're going to help him, sweetheart. But first, I need to call Victoria and let her know you're safe. She's probably frantic by now. As if on cue, Lily's name was called from the doorway. She turned to see Mr. Grayson standing there, his thin face stretched in what was clearly meant to be a reassuring smile but came across as predatory. There you are, Lily, he said smoothly. Your mother is beside herself with worry. I've been sent to bring you home. The atmosphere in the community center shifted instantly. Several men moved protectively toward Elijah, while Andrea Wilson stepped forward, placing herself between Grayson and the group. Mr. Grayson, she acknowledged coolly. This is a private meeting. Grayson's smile didn't waver. I'm only here for the child. Mrs. Carson reported her missing over an hour ago. The police have been notified. His gaze settled on Rose. Though I'm sure they'll be interested to learn that her grandmother was involved in her unauthorized excursion. Rose stood tall despite being several inches shorter than Grayson. I had no knowledge of Lily's plans. I came here independently to offer my support to the Riverside residents. A touching sentiment, Grayson sneered. I'm sure Charles will be fascinated to hear about your divided loyalties. He turned to Lily, his voice artificially sweet. Come along, Lily. Your parents are waiting. Lily shrank back against Rose. I don't want to go with him, Grandma. Lily stays with me, Rose stated firmly. I'll call Victoria, myself, and arrange to bring her home. Grayson's pleasant facade slipped momentarily. That's not acceptable. I have my instructions. Your instructions? Andrea echoed, her voice sharp. Let's be clear, Mr. Grayson. You have no legal authority to take this child anywhere. If Mrs. Foster, as her grandmother, says she'll return Lily to her parents, that's the end of the matter. For a tense moment, Grayson seemed to calculate his options, his cold eyes moving from Rose to Lily to Andrea. Finally, he offered another, insincere smile. Very well, but Charles won't be pleased about this delay. He pointed at Elijah. And you should know, Booker, the hearing date has been moved up. Judge Patterson will rule on the property claims tomorrow morning, not Wednesday. A ripple of dismay went through the room. That's not possible, Andrea protested. We weren't notified of any change. An administrative oversight, I'm sure, Grayson replied without concern. The courthouse opens at 8 a.m., Ms. Wilson. I suggest you be prompt. With that parting shot, he turned and left the center, but not before giving Lily a look that sent shivers down her spine. Once he was gone, the room erupted in anxious conversation. Andrea immediately pulled out her phone, stepping away to make urgent calls. Elijah sank heavily into a chair, the weight of this new setback evident in his posture. They're rushing the hearing because they know we've found evidence, Rose said, her voice tight with anger. Typical Charles, changing the rules whenever the game isn't going his way. Lily looked up at her grandmother, confusion and fear warring on her young face. Will Mr. Elijah lose his house? Before Rose could answer, the attorney returned, her expression grim. It's confirmed. Judge Patterson signed the order this morning. On a Sunday, which is highly irregular. The hearing is scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow. Can we stop it? Elijah asked. Andrea shook her head. Not without significant new evidence. This document fragment helps, but it's not enough on its own. She gestured to the paper Lily had brought. We need the complete deed, or better yet, evidence of fraud and how Carson obtained these properties. Rose's eyes lit up suddenly. Charles keeps all his important documents in his home office safe. I've seen him accessing it, behind the landscape painting in his study. Mrs. Foster, Andrea said carefully. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? I'm suggesting, Rose replied evenly, that justice sometimes requires extraordinary measures. And as Lily's grandmother, I have legitimate reasons to be in that house. Absolutely not, Elijah protested. I won't have you risking yourself for my sake, Rose. It's not just for you, Rose countered. It's for everyone in Riverside. Charles has been playing dirty for years, stealing homes, destroying lives. It's time someone stood up to him. Lily, who had been listening intently, suddenly tugged on Rose's sleeve again. I know the combination, she said quietly. All eyes turned to her. What was that, sweetheart? Rose asked. To Dad's safe, Lily clarified. I know the combination. I've seen him open it lots of times when he thought I wasn't looking. It's my birthday. April 26th, Arrow 426. A stunned silence followed this revelation. Then Andrea spoke, choosing her words with legal precision. I want to be very clear that I am not advocating breaking any laws. However, Mrs. Foster, as a family member with regular access to the Carson home, if you happen to come across evidence of illegal activity during a normal visit. I understand, Rose nodded. She turned to Lily. Sweetheart, I need to take you home now. Your mother is worried, and we don't want to give Grayson any more ammunition against us. But I want you to know how proud I am of you for standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult. Lily looked at Elijah, tears welling in her eyes. I'm sorry about what happened at my party, and I'm sorry about what my dad is doing. Elijah knelt in front of her, his weathered hands gently taking hers. None of that is your burden to bear, Miss Lily. You've already done more to help than many grown folks would have dared. You keep that good heart of yours. It's the rarest treasure there is. Rose looked at her watch. We should go. Victoria will be beside herself, and we need to get ahead of whatever story Grayson is spinning. She turned to Andrea. I'll be in touch tonight if I find anything of interest. As they left the community center, Lily felt both frightened and strangely exhilarated. For the first time in her life, she was standing up against her parents' wrong actions, not with childish defiance, but with a growing understanding of true right and wrong. The Uber ride back to the Carson estate was tense, with Rose making a difficult call to Victoria, explaining that she had found Lily exploring the neighborhood where she had been running errands, conveniently omitting the community center and their real activities. When they arrived, Victoria was waiting at the door, her face a mask of fury barely contained for the driver's benefit. The moment they stepped inside, she exploded. Have you lost your mind, Mother? Taking Lily to that slum without our permission? I didn't take her anywhere, Rose corrected calmly. She made her way there independently, which speaks volumes about her determination. I simply brought her home safely. Victoria turned her rage on Lily. Do you have any idea how worried we were? How dare you leave this house without permission? And after yesterday's embarrassment with that garbage man, I would think you'd show some remorse instead of more disobedience. His name is Mr. Elijah, Lily said quietly but firmly. And he's not a garbage man. He's a carpenter whose house you and Daddy are trying to steal. Victoria's hand moved so quickly that neither Lily nor Rose had time to react. The slap connected with Lily's cheek, the sound sharp in the marble entryway. Lily stumbled back, more from shock than force, her hand flying to her reddening face. "Victoria!" Rose gasped, immediately putting her arms around Lily. Victoria seemed almost as shocked by her action as they were. She stared at her hand for a moment before composing herself. "Lily will remain in her room until Charles returns. We'll decide on an appropriate punishment then. As for you, Mother, perhaps it's time you reconsidered your living arrangements. This constant undermining of our parenting cannot continue." "We'll discuss that later," Rose said coldly, guiding Lily toward the stairs. "Right now, this child needs comfort, not more cruelty." In Lily's bedroom, Rose gently examined her cheek. "It's not too bad, sweetheart. Just a little red." Lily wasn't crying. A strange calm had settled over her, as if the slap had crystallized something she'd been feeling for a long time. "Mom and Dad are the bad guys in this story, aren't they, Grandma?" Rose sighed deeply, sitting on the edge of Lily's bed. "The world isn't always divided neatly into good guys and bad guys, Lily. Sometimes good people make bad choices because of fear or greed or the belief that they're entitled to more than others. But taking someone's home is wrong," Lily insisted, "and hurting people who can't fight back is wrong too." "Yes," Rose agreed simply, "those things are wrong." They sat in silence for a moment before Lily spoke again. "Are you really going to check Dad's safe?" Rose hesitated, then nodded. "Tonight, after everyone's asleep. Charles won't be home until late, according to Victoria, and your mother takes a sleeping pill most nights." "Be careful, Grandma," Lily whispered. "Dad gets really mad when people touch his things." Rose kissed the top of Lily's head. "Don't you worry about me. Now why don't you rest for a while? It's been quite a day already." After Rose left, Lily didn't rest. Instead, she sat by her window, watching the shadows lengthen across the perfectly maintained lawn as evening approached. She thought about Mr. Elijah's quiet dignity, about the small blue house that meant everything to him, about the wooden box that had accidentally revealed a long-hidden truth. Around 7 o'clock, Mrs. Bennet brought up a tray with dinner, her expression sympathetic. "Your mother says you're to eat in your room tonight," she explained, setting down the tray. "Thank you, Mrs. Bennet," Lily said politely. Once the housekeeper left, she picked at the food without much interest. Her mind was too busy planning. Just before midnight, a soft tap on her door made Lily sit up in bed. She hadn't been sleeping, just waiting. Rose slipped inside, her expression tense but determined. "Everyone's asleep," Rose whispered. "I'm going to check the safe now." "I'm coming with you," Lily announced, already sliding out of bed. She was still fully dressed, having only pretended to change into pajamas earlier. Rose looked like she wanted to argue but seemed to recognize the same determination in Lily that had led her to Riverside on her own earlier that day. "Stay behind me, be absolutely silent, and if I tell you to go back to your room, you do it immediately. Understood?" Lily nodded solemnly. Together, they crept down the hallway toward Charles's study. The house was silent except for the occasional creaking of settling wood and the distant ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer. Rose eased the study door open, wincing at the slight squeak from one hinge. Inside, moonlight spilled through the large windows, illuminating Charles' imposing desk and the walls lined with books he rarely read. Rose moved directly to the large landscape painting on the eastern wall. A dramatic sunset over mountains that Charles had often boasted was painted by a famous artist. With Lily's help, they carefully lifted the painting away from the wall, revealing the wall safe behind it. Lily leaned forward, her small fingers turning the dial with practiced precision. Left to 4, right to 2, left to 6. There was a soft click, and the safe door swung open. Inside were stacks of documents, a small velvet bag that likely contained Victoria's most valuable jewelry, and a thick manila envelope labeled Riverside Confidential. Rose removed this last item, her hands trembling slightly as she opened it on Charles's desk. "Shine my phone on these," she instructed Lily, handing over her cell. "I need to see what we're dealing with. As Lily held the light, Rose leafed through document after document, her expression growing increasingly troubled. Original deeds, forged transfer papers, payoffs to city officials. My God, it's all here. He documented everything. Is it enough to help Mr. Elijah? Lily whispered. More than enough, Rose confirmed, quickly using her phone to photograph key pages. This proves your father falsified documents to claim properties that had been in black families for generations. He even... She stopped suddenly, her face paling as she read one particular document. Oh, Charles, what have you done? Before Lily could ask what she'd found, a sound from the hallway froze them both. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching the study. Charles was home early. Rose quickly stuffed the documents back into the envelope, but before she could return it to the safe, the study door swung open. Charles stood in the doorway, still in his business suit, his face hardening as he took in the scene before him, his mother-in-law and daughter caught red-handed at his open safe. Well, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Isn't this interesting? Time seemed to freeze as Charles stood in the doorway, his imposing figure silhouetted against the hallway light. His eyes moved deliberately from Lily to Rose, then to the manila envelope in his mother-in-law's hands. Put that down, he commanded, his voice unnervingly calm. Now. Rose straightened her shoulders, her grip on the envelope tightening. I know what you've done, Charles. These documents prove you've stolen homes from innocent people through forgery and fraud. Charles stepped fully into the study, closing the door behind him. Those are confidential business papers that you have no right to access. I could have you arrested for breaking into my safe. I didn't break in, Rose countered. Lily opened it at my request, and as a regular resident of this house I'd hardly be charged with breaking and entering. Grandma, Lily whispered urgently, tugging at Rose's sleeve. The tension in the room was suffocating. Charles's eyes locked onto his daughter, something dangerous flickering in their depths. Lily, go to your room. This is between your grandmother and me. No, Daddy. Lily's voice shook but held firm. I know what you're doing to Mr. Elijah and his neighbors. You're taking their houses and it's wrong. A flash of genuine surprise crossed Charles's face. This isn't about right and wrong, Lily. It's about business, progress, concepts you're too young to understand. I understand enough, Lily replied. You're hurting people I care about, Charles scoffed, turning his attention back to Rose. This is your influence, I presume? Filling her head with nonsense about justice and equality? Teaching my daughter to spy on her own father? She came to these conclusions on her own, Rose said. Children have a remarkable sense of fairness, Charles, something adults like you seem to lose along the way. With deliberate steps, Charles moved to his desk and pressed a button on the underside. I've just activated the silent alarm. Security will be here in moments. Your choice, Rose. Hand over those documents and leave this house tonight, or I'll have you removed forcibly and press charges. Rose didn't flinch. And I'll go straight to the district attorney with copies of these documents that prove you've committed serious fraud. Even your friends in high places can't protect you from this level of criminal evidence. Charles's confident expression faltered. You're bluffing. You haven't had time to make copies. Rose held up her phone. Digital age, Charles. Every incriminating. Pages already uploaded to my cloud storage. The sound of hurried footsteps in the hallway announced the arrival of the security team. Charles raised a hand, signaling them to wait outside. What do you want? He asked, his voice tightly controlled. Cancel tomorrow's hearing, Rose replied immediately. Return the properties to their rightful owners, with compensation for damages, and leave Elijah Booker alone, permanently, Charles laughed, though there was no humor in it. You're asking me to throw away millions of dollars and years of work, not to mention admit to illegal activities that would destroy my reputation, and possibly land me in jail. I'm asking you to do the right thing for once in your life, Rose said quietly, before it's too late. Lily watched this exchange with wide eyes, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. She'd never seen her father backed into a corner before, had never imagined her grandmother could stand up to him so fearlessly. Charles was silent for a long moment, calculation evident in his eyes. Finally, he spoke. I need those original documents. The copies you can keep. They're useless without the originals to verify them. And why would I agree to that? Rose asked. Because I'll give you what you want. Most of it anyway. I'll postpone tomorrow's hearing indefinitely. I'll negotiate fair settlements with the Riverside property owners who want to sell. Those who don't, including your friend Booker, can keep their homes. Rose studied him skeptically. And we're supposed to trust you'll honor this arrangement? You'll have the copies as insurance, Charles pointed out. If I renege, you can still expose me. I want it in writing, Rose insisted. Signed and notarized first thing tomorrow morning. Charles glanced at his watch. It's nearly 1 a.m. Where exactly do you propose we find a notary at this hour? My friend Helen is a notary, Rose replied smoothly. And she owes me a favor. I'll call her now and she'll meet us at the community center in Riverside in 1 hour. Charles's face darkened with barely suppressed fury. You expect me to go to that neighborhood? At this hour? Think of it as a goodwill gesture, Rose suggested, her voice deceptively light. A chance to see the community you nearly destroyed. The tense negotiation might have continued, but it was interrupted by a new voice at the study door. What is going on here? Victoria stood in the doorway, her silk robe wrapped tightly around her, expression fluctuating between confusion and anger. Charles? Mother? Why is Lily out of bed? In the momentary distraction, Charles lunged forward, grabbing the manila envelope from Rose's hands. Your mother has been snooping through my business files, he told Victoria, and apparently teaching our daughter to do the same. Victoria's shocked gaze fell on Rose. Mother, how could you? How could I? Rose echoed incredulously. How could you stand by while your husband steals homes from innocent people? While he uses illegal tactics to bully and intimidate families who've lived in Riverside for generations? Business is business, Victoria said stiffly. Charles does. What needs to be done? He provides for this family. At what cost? Rose demanded. Look at your daughter, Victoria. Look at the moral compass she's developing despite your example. Is this really the legacy you want to leave her? Victoria's eyes flicked to Lily, who stood small but resolute beside her grandmother. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Doubt, perhaps, or the ghost of a conscience long suppressed. It doesn't matter now, Charles said decisively, tucking the envelope into his jacket. We're done here. Security will escort Rose off the property. She's no longer welcome in this house. If Grandma goes, I go too, Lily declared, gripping Rose's hand tightly. Victoria stepped forward then, unexpected steel in her voice. No one is going anywhere tonight. It's the middle of the night and we're all exhausted. Whatever this is about, we can deal with it in the morning. Charles turned to his wife, clearly surprised by her intervention. Victoria, your mother has actively worked against our interests. She can't stay here. She's my mother, Charles, Victoria replied. And while I may not approve of her actions, I won't have her thrown out like a common criminal at 1 a.m. She turned to Rose. You'll stay in the guest wing tonight. We'll discuss your living arrangements permanently in the morning. Rose nodded, understanding the small reprieve for what it was. Thank you, Victoria. As for you, Victoria continued, looking at Lily, back to bed, immediately. But Mom, now Lily, Victoria said, her tone allowing no argument. Reluctantly, Lily let go of Rose's hand. What about Mr. Elijah? She whispered. I'll handle it, Rose assured her quietly. Trust me. With one last defiant look at her father, Lily left the study, but instead of going to her room, she hovered just around the corner, listening intently. I won't forget this betrayal, Rose, Charles was saying, his voice low and threatening. Nor will I forget yours, Charles, Rose replied evenly. Against your community, against basic human decency. Charles, enough, Victoria interjected. Whatever business dispute this is about can wait until morning. I'm going back to bed, and I suggest you both do the same. Footsteps approached the door, and Lily quickly retreated to her bedroom, her mind racing. She didn't believe for a moment that her father would honor any agreement with Rose, especially now that he had recovered the incriminating documents. But Rose had copies on her phone. Surely that would be enough. Lily tried to sleep, but found it impossible. Around 2 a.m. she heard muffled voices downstairs. Charles on the phone, his tone urgent but too quiet to make out the words. Shortly after, there was the sound of a car starting in the driveway, then pulling away into the night. Just after 2:30 a.m., a gentle tap on her door made Lily sit up. Rose slipped inside, now dressed in street clothes rather than her nightgown. "Lily, I need you to listen carefully," Rose whispered, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Your father has gone out to meet with Grayson, I suspect. I need to warn Elijah and the others. I've called a taxi to take me to Riverside." "I'm coming with you," Lily insisted, already reaching for her shoes. "No, sweetheart, it's too dangerous. I need you to stay here and keep an eye on things. If your father returns before I do, text me immediately." Rose pressed her phone into Lily's hands. "I've set up a special number. Just press the star key, and it will alert me." Lily wanted to argue but recognized the determination in her grandmother's eyes. "Be careful, Grandma." Rose hugged Lily tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Lily. Never forget that." With a final squeeze, she slipped out of the room. Lily sat in the darkness, clutching Rose's phone, fear and anticipation warring in her chest. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. At 3:17 a.m., headlights swept across her window as a car pulled into the driveway. Lily rushed to look out and saw her father's sleek black sedan. He was back already. Her finger hovered over the star key, ready to warn Rose, when she noticed something odd. Charles wasn't alone. Another car pulled in behind his, a nondescript gray sedan she'd seen before. Mr. Grayson's car. Heart pounding, Lily pressed the alert button and then crept to her door, opening it just enough to hear what was happening downstairs. Charles and Grayson's voices drifted up, tense and urgent. "Need to move tonight," Charles was saying, "before she has a chance to make her claims public." "The old train yard is isolated enough," Grayson replied. "We can make it look like an accident. These older neighborhoods have so much crime these days." A cold fear gripped Lily's heart. They were talking about hurting someone. Mr. Elijah? Grandma Rose? She needed to do something, but what could a 10-year-old girl do against two grown men with such terrible intentions? The answer came to her suddenly. With shaking hands, she picked up her own phone and dialed 911. "Emergency services," the dispatcher answered. "Please help," Lily whispered, careful to keep her voice down. "My name is Lily Carson. My dad and his friend are planning to hurt someone at the old train yard near Riverside. I think they're going there right now." "Are you in danger, Lily?" the dispatcher asked, her voice calm but concerned. "I don't think so, but my grandmother and my friend Mr. Elijah are," Lily replied. "Please hurry." After providing a few more details, Lily ended the call. Her next move was less certain. Should she stay as Rose had instructed, or try to warn them directly? The decision was made for her when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Quickly, she closed her door and pretended to be asleep just as Victoria looked in. "Lily," her mother called softly. "Are you awake?" Lily remained still, her breathing deliberately deep and even. After a moment, Victoria closed the door and moved on, presumably checking other rooms. Once she was sure Victoria was gone, Lily slipped out of bed and changed into jeans and a sweatshirt. If her parents wouldn't do the right thing, she would. Somehow she needed to get to the train yard. The old Riverside train yard had been abandoned for nearly 2 decades. Once a bustling hub of commerce, it now stood as a rusting monument to industrial decay, a sprawling maze of disused tracks, derelict train cars, and crumbling maintenance buildings. In the pale moonlight, it cast long, sinister shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Rose Foster stood beside a weather-beaten freight office, her breath visible in the cool night air. Beside her, Elijah Booker and Andrea Wilson waited tensely, their eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. "He should have been here by now," Andrea whispered, checking her watch. "It's nearly 4 a.m. Charles isn't known for his punctuality when it doesn't suit him," Rose replied grimly. "Though I'm beginning to wonder if this meeting was a ruse." Elijah shifted uneasily. "We should have met somewhere more public. This place gives me the creeps even in daylight. A message alert chimed on Andrea's phone. She glanced at it, her expression growing concerned. That was my paralegal. He can't. Find Judge Patterson to serve our emergency petition. His house is empty, and he's not answering his phone. That's not coincidence, Rose muttered. Charles has him tucked away somewhere until this blows over. The distant sound of a car engine made them all freeze. Headlights swept across the train yard entrance, then shut off abruptly. That's not Charles's car, Rose observed tensely. It's too small. We need to hide, Andrea decided, pulling them toward an abandoned passenger car nearby. At least until we know who we're dealing with. They had just slipped inside the rusted car when footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. A small beam of light danced across the train yard as someone approached with a flashlight. "Grandma?" a young voice called out hesitantly. "Mr. Elijah? Are you here?" "Lily!" Rose gasped, rushing to the door of the train car. "Lily, over here!" The flashlight beam swung toward them, revealing Lily's small figure picking her way carefully between the tracks. Rose hurried to meet her, catching her in a fierce embrace. "What on earth are you doing here? How did you even get here?" "I took an Uber," Lily explained breathlessly. "The driver didn't want to bring me at first because I'm a kid, but I told him my grandmother was in trouble and showed him your text messages." "That was incredibly dangerous," Rose scolded, though her relief at seeing Lily safe was evident. "Why didn't you stay home as I asked?" "Because Dad and Mr. Grayson are coming here," Lily explained urgently. "I heard them talking. They're going to hurt someone and make it look like an accident. I called the police, but I don't know if they believed me." Elijah and Andrea had emerged from the train car, their faces tense with this new information. "We need to leave," Andrea said decisively. "Now." But before they could move, another set of headlights appeared at the entrance to the train yard. 2 cars this time, moving slowly into the open area with their high beams illuminating everything in harsh white light. "Too late," Elijah murmured, pulling Lily behind him protectively. "They're here." The 2 cars stopped about 50 yards away, their headlights creating a blinding wall of light that made it impossible to see who was inside. Car doors opened and closed. Footsteps approached, multiple sets, moving with deliberate purpose. "Stay behind me," Rose whispered to Lily, positioning herself between her granddaughter and the approaching threat. Charles Carson's voice cut through the night air. "I know you're there, Rose. This little game of cat and mouse ends now." "There's nothing game-like about fraud and theft, Charles," Rose called back, her voice remarkably steady despite her fear. 4 figures emerged from the glare of the headlights. Charles, Grayson, and 2 burly men who were clearly private security rather than police. Charles held up the manila envelope from his safe. "You wanted these documents so badly," he said, his voice carrying across the yard. "Here they are." To everyone's shock, he removed a lighter from his pocket and held it to the corner of the envelope. The paper caught immediately, flames licking up the side as Charles dropped it to the ground. "No!" Andrea gasped, starting forward. "I wouldn't," Grayson warned, pulling back his jacket to reveal a holstered gun. Andrea froze, her legal training warring with her desire to save the evidence. "You do realize destroying evidence is a felony, Mr. Carson?" Charles smiled coldly. "What evidence?" "These are just business papers I decided to dispose of. No court in this country would take the word of a bleeding heart legal aid lawyer and a disgruntled old carpenter over mine." "You're wrong," Rose countered. "The copies are already with 3 different news organizations, set to be published tomorrow morning if I don't call them off personally." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Charles's face before his confident mask returned. "A bluff, Rose. You've had no time to contact journalists." "Are you willing to bet your freedom on that assumption?" Rose challenged. While this exchange continued, Lily tugged on Elijah's sleeve, pointing to the far side of the train yard, where faint blue and red lights had begun to flash. The police were arriving, but they were parking without sirens, perhaps preparing to assess the situation before intervening. "We just need to stall them," Lily whispered. Elijah nodded almost imperceptibly, then stepped forward to stand beside Rose. Carson, he called out, his deep voice resonating in the night air. 30 years ago, you came to my workshop. You admired my craftsmanship. You offered to help me expand my business. Charles's expression hardened. Ancient history booker. Irrelevant. Not to me, Elijah continued. Not to the 37 families whose homes you've stolen through forged documents and backroom deals. Not to the community you've been trying to erase for your luxury condos. Progress requires sacrifice, Charles said dismissively. Riverside was dying long before I came along. Riverside was thriving, Elijah shot back, real anger finally breaking through his composed exterior. We had businesses, churches, schools. What we didn't have was the kind of money that buys judges and city officials. The police lights were growing brighter as more vehicles arrived, though still without sirens. Lily could see officers beginning to move into position around the perimeter of the train yard. Charles must have noticed too because his demeanor suddenly changed. Enough talking! Grayson, get the girl! Grayson's eyes widened in surprise. The girl? Charles, we agreed. Plans change, Charles snapped. Get Lily. She's our insurance out of here. Everything happened at once then. Grayson and the security. Men started forward. Rose shoved Lily toward one of the abandoned train cars, shouting for her to run. Elijah stepped directly into Grayson's path, his substantial frame creating a human barrier. And then, with perfect timing, floodlights blazed from all sides as a voice boomed over a megaphone. This is the police. Everyone remain where you are. Keep your hands visible! In the sudden chaos, Grayson made a desperate lunge toward where Lily had disappeared. Rose moved to intercept him, but one of the security men grabbed her arm, yanking her back roughly. Elijah, seeing Rose in danger, charged the man, tackling him to the ground, despite being 20 years his senior. Lily, hidden behind a stack of old railroad ties, watched in horror as the scene devolved into a struggle. Police officers were rushing in now, shouting commands that were ignored in the confusion. Grayson had broken free and was heading straight for her hiding place, his face contorted with desperate calculation. Just as his hand reached for her, another figure appeared. Victoria Carson, her normally perfect hair disheveled, her designer. Clothes replaced by jeans and a sweater Lily had never seen her wear. Don't you dare touch my daughter, Victoria hissed, positioning herself between Grayson and Lily. Grayson faltered, clearly shocked by her appearance. Victoria, what are you doing here? Cleaning up the mess you and my husband have made, she replied coldly. It ends tonight, Grayson. Charles had noticed his wife's arrival and was pushing past a police officer to reach them. Victoria, what the hell do you think you're doing? Victoria turned to face her husband, her voice steady and clear. The right thing, Charles. Finally. You're choosing them over me? Over everything we've built? Charles's voice was equal parts rage and disbelief. I'm choosing our daughter, Victoria replied. I'm choosing not to be the villain in her story. It was the last thing anyone expected, least of all Lily, who had never seen her mother stand up to her father before. The distraction gave the police the opening they needed. Within moments, officers had separated everyone, securing Grayson and the security men in handcuffs, while others created a perimeter around Charles. Charles Carson, the lead officer announced formally. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit assault, destruction of evidence, and obstruction of justice. More charges may follow pending investigation. As they read him his rights, Charles's gaze locked onto Victoria's. You'll regret this, he promised quietly. When the money runs out and your friends abandon you, you'll remember who gave you everything. Victoria met his gaze without flinching. No, Charles, you didn't give me everything. You took the parts of me that mattered most. My integrity, my compassion. Well, I'm taking them back tonight. As the police led Charles away, Lily emerged from her hiding place and ran straight into Victoria's arms. To her surprise, her mother held her tightly, something she hadn't done in years. I'm so sorry, Lily, Victoria whispered, stroking her daughter's hair. I've been blind for so long, so afraid of losing the life I thought I needed. You knew, Lily said quietly, about what Dad was doing to Mr. Elijah and the others. Victoria. nodded, shame evident in her eyes. I knew enough to suspect, and I chose not to look closer. It was easier to believe your father's version of progress than to confront the truth. What changed your mind? Rose asked, joining them with Elijah and Andrea close behind. Lily did, Victoria admitted. Watching her stand up for what's right, despite everything. It woke something in me I thought was long dead. She turned to Elijah. Mr. Booker, I can't undo the harm Charles has caused, but I promise you this. I will do everything in my power to make it right. Elijah studied her, face searching for sincerity. That's a start, Mrs. Carson, a good start. Andrea Wilson stepped forward, her attorney's mind already sorting through the legal implications. We should get statements from everyone while the details are fresh, and we'll need to file emergency motions in the morning to halt any pending actions against the Riverside properties. I have contacts at the State Bar Association, Victoria offered. I'll call them first thing about Judge Patterson's involvement. As the group began walking toward the police vehicles, Rose fell into step beside Victoria. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. It takes tremendous courage to recognize when you're on the wrong path. Victoria glanced at her mother, years of tension lingering between them. I was so angry with you for so long, for judging my choices, for being right about Charles. I didn't want to see what was happening to me, to Lily. It's never too late to change direction, Rose assured her, tentatively taking her daughter's hand. Ahead of them, Lily walked with Elijah, her small hand wrapped trustingly in his large one. Despite the chaos and danger of the night, she seemed strangely at peace. What happens now, Mr. Elijah? She asked as they reached the edge of the train yard. Elijah looked down at her, his weathered face tired but hopeful in the growing dawn light. Now, Miss Lily, we rebuild. We heal what's been broken. And we remember that sometimes the most important victories come from the smallest warriors. The sunrise painted the eastern sky in shades of pink and gold as police cars and ambulances illuminated the old train yard with their flashing lights. It was a scene of ending and beginning, of secrets exposed and truths acknowledged. For Lily Carson, it marked the night she discovered that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worthwhile. As she climbed into the police car, with her mother and grandmother for the ride to the station to give their statements, Lily looked back at the train yard one last time. In the growing light, it didn't seem so frightening anymore, just old and tired and ready for a new purpose. Like the adults in her life, she thought, it was time for a second chance. The morning after the train yard confrontation brought a flurry of activity unlike anything Lily had ever experienced. Police officers filled the mansion's ornate living room, collecting evidence from Charles's study and taking statements from Victoria, Rose, and, with special care and a child advocate present, from Lily herself. Outside, news vans lined Magnolia Avenue as reporters caught wind of Charles Carson's overnight arrest. Phrases like real estate fraud and prominent businessmen detained buzzed through the morning news cycle, though the full story had yet to break. In the kitchen, away from the commotion, Lily sat with her mother and grandmother, all three exhausted from the night's events, but too wired to sleep. What happens now? Lily asked, pushing her untouched cereal around the bowl. Victoria looked to Rose, then back to her daughter. Your father will appear before a judge this morning. His lawyers will try to get him released on bail. Will they succeed? Rose asked, concerned. Victoria's expression hardened slightly. They might. Charles has powerful friends. But this time, she added, seeing Lily's worried face, he won't be able to make the evidence disappear. Detective Sarah Hammond, the lead investigator on the case, entered the kitchen with Andrea Wilson beside her. The attorney had been working, through the night, coordinating with police and preparing emergency filings for court. Mrs. Carson, Detective Hammond addressed Victoria, we've secured the documents from your husband's office safe, along with his computer. The forensic team is processing everything now. And I've spoken with the court administrator, Andrea added. Judge Patterson has mysteriously taken a leave of absence, but we've been reassigned to Judge Michaels, who, thankfully, has no known ties to Carson Developments. What about the hearing on the Riverside properties? Rose asked. Postponed indefinitely, Andrea confirmed with a small smile. And I've filed emergency injunctions preventing any action on those properties until ownership can be properly established. Lily perked up at this news. So Mr. Elijah gets to keep his house? It looks that way, Andrea nodded. In fact, I just came from the community center. The residents are organizing a press conference for this afternoon. They want to tell their side of the story while the media spotlight is shining. Victoria looked thoughtful. They should do it here. Everyone stared at her in surprise. Here? Andrea echoed. At the Carson estate? Yes, Victoria said decisively. If we're going to start making amends, let's do it properly. The symbolism won't be lost on anyone. The very people Charles tried to displace, speaking out from his own front lawn. Rose studied her daughter with newfound respect. That's actually a powerful statement, Victoria. Will you help me arrange it? Victoria asked, a note of uncertainty in her voice. It was perhaps the first time Lily had ever heard her mother ask for help rather than simply issuing commands. Of course, Rose agreed warmly. As the adults began planning, Lily slipped out of the kitchen and headed upstairs to her bedroom. Despite the excitement of justice being served, a hollow feeling had settled in her chest. Her father, despite all his flaws and wrongdoings, was still her father, and now he was gone, possibly for good. She sat on her window seat, looking out at the perfect lawn where just days ago her birthday party had been held. It felt like a lifetime had passed since then. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. May I come in? Victoria asked, standing in the doorway with uncharacteristic hesitation. Lily nodded, and Victoria crossed the room to sit beside her, careful to leave space between them. This must be very confusing for you, Victoria began, her normally crisp voice softened with genuine concern. I'm glad Mr. Elijah gets to keep his house, Lily said, but I still feel sad about Dad. Is that wrong? Victoria shook her head. No, sweetheart. It's perfectly natural. You can be relieved that justice is being done while still loving your father. Do you still love him? Lily asked with a child's directness. Victoria took a deep breath. I loved the man I thought he was or could be. I'm not sure I ever truly knew your father. She reached out tentatively to brush a strand of hair from Lily's face. But I know you, and I've done you a disservice all these years by not seeing how extraordinary you are. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. Are we going to be okay, Mom? Victoria pulled her daughter into a gentle embrace. Yes, Lily. We're going to be okay. Different, but okay. By noon, the Carson estate had transformed. News crews set up on the front lawn while community organizers arranged chairs and a podium. Residents from Riverside began arriving, cautiously at first, as if expecting to be turned away, then with growing confidence as Victoria personally welcomed them. Elijah arrived with several community elders, his dignity intact despite the events of the previous night. When he spotted Lily on the front steps, his face creased in a warm smile. Miss Lily, he greeted her, tipping his cap. Quite a gathering you've got here. Mom says it's important for everyone to hear the truth, Lily replied, falling into step beside him as they walked toward the podium. Are you going to speak? They tell me I am. Elijah nodded, a touch of nervousness in his voice. Never been one for public talking, but some stories need telling. The press conference began with Andrea Wilson outlining the legal case against Charles Carson, the forged documents, the bribing of officials, the systematic disenfranchisement of the Riverside property owners. Victoria stood to one side, her face composed but pale as her husband's crimes were laid bare for all to hear. Then came the residents themselves. One by one, they stepped to the microphone to share their stories. Mrs. Jackson, who had raised 6 children in her Riverside home and had been fighting an eviction notice for 2 years. Mr. Thompson, whose suspicious apartment fire had left his family homeless, just as he'd begun questioning the ownership claims against his property. And, finally, Elijah Booker. I've lived in Riverside all my life, he began, his deep voice carrying across the hushed crowd. My father built our house with his own hands, taught me carpentry in that same home. When Carson Developments came along claiming the deed was invalid, I thought it was just a mistake at first." He paused, his eyes finding Lily in the crowd. "But it wasn't a mistake. It was a deliberate attempt to erase our history, our community, our very existence. And it might have succeeded, if not for the conscience of a 10-year-old girl who saw clearly what many adults refuse to see. That injustice is still injustice, even when it wears expensive suits and calls itself progress." Cameras swiveled toward Lily, who shrank slightly under the sudden attention. Victoria stepped forward protectively, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "The Carson family has much to answer for," Victoria acknowledged, speaking publicly for the first time. "But today marks the beginning of a new chapter. I cannot undo the harm that's been done, but I can pledge that from this day forward, Carson. Resources will be used to heal rather than harm this community." A skeptical murmur ran through the crowd. These were not people accustomed to having their interests considered by the wealthy and powerful. "Actions will speak louder than words," Victoria continued, acknowledging their doubt. "Which is why I'm announcing today the creation of the Riverside Restoration Fund. Every dollar that was earmarked for the development project will be redirected to community-led initiatives, with oversight from a board composed primarily of Riverside residents." This announcement drew surprised applause, but the real shock came next. "Additionally," Victoria said, "the Carson estate will be sold, with proceeds going to compensate those who have been harmed by my husband's business practices. My daughter and I will be relocating to a more modest home, one that reflects our new values and priorities." Rose, standing nearby, looked as surprised as everyone else. This had clearly not been part of the planned announcements. As the press conference continued, a commotion at the edge of the property drew attention. A sleek black car had pulled up, and from it emerged Charles Carson, free on bail, his expression thunderous as he took in the scene before him. "What the hell is going on here?" he demanded, pushing past security officers to storm toward the podium. The crowd parted nervously as he approached, his normally immaculate appearance slightly disheveled from his night in custody. Victoria straightened her spine, meeting his rage with unexpected calm. "The truth is finally being told, Charles," she said loudly enough for the microphones to pick up. "Something that should have happened years ago. You invited these people onto my property." Charles sputtered, gesturing wildly at the Riverside residents. "You're hosting a circus for the press about matters you don't understand?" "I understand perfectly," Victoria countered. "I've chosen which side of history I want to be on, and it's not yours." Charles laughed bitterly. "This momentary attack of conscience will pass, Victoria. It always does when the bills come due. Enjoy your little rebellion while you can afford it." "Actually," Rose interjected, stepping forward, "Victoria won't need to worry about money. My late husband's trust fund, the one you've been so desperate to access, remains intact. And as of this morning, I've amended the terms to bypass you entirely, ensuring Victoria and Lily will be well provided for regardless of the outcome of your legal troubles." Charles's face contorted with fury. He lunged toward Rose only to be immediately intercepted by security personnel and police officers who had been monitoring the situation. "You'll regret this," he shouted as they restrained him. "All of you. I built this family. I built this empire." "On stolen land and broken promises," Elijah commented quietly, but the microphones caught it, and a ripple of affirmation spread through the crowd. As security escorted a still shouting Charles from the property, the cameras captured every moment of his meltdown. It was a public and complete fall from grace for a man who had built his reputation on projecting power and control. In the chaos, Lily found herself standing beside Elijah, both watching as Charles's car drove away. "Is it over now?" she asked. Quietly, Elijah shook his head. "Not quite, Miss Lily. The truth is out, which is a mighty important step. But healing takes longer than hurting. We've got work ahead of us yet. But we'll do it together, right?" Lily looked up at him hopefully. "Together," Elijah confirmed, offering his weathered hand. "That's the only way real change happens anyway." 3 months passed, bringing summer heat and dramatic changes to the lives of everyone involved in what the local press had dubbed the Riverside Revelation. Charles Carson's trial was still pending, but the evidence against him mounted daily, as former associates scrambled to make deals with prosecutors. Judge Patterson had resigned amid an ethics investigation, and Mr. Grayson was cooperating with authorities in exchange for leniency, providing details of the elaborate scheme that had allowed Carson Developments to seize properties across the city through fraudulent means. The Carson mansion had been sold to a tech entrepreneur who promised to donate the sprawling property for use as a community arts center. Victoria and Lily had moved into Rose's comfortable but modest home in a quieter neighborhood, creating a multi-generational household that was healing old wounds with each passing day. On a warm Saturday in July, Lily sat on the front porch of Elijah's blue house with white shutters, watching as community members gathered for what had become a weekly tradition, the Riverside Restoration Committee meeting. Today was special, though. Today they would break ground on the first project funded by the newly established trust. "Nervous about your speech?" Rose asked, settling into the rocking chair beside Lily. Lily nodded, clutching the index cards where she'd written her remarks. As the unofficial junior chairperson of the committee, she'd been asked to say a few words at the ceremony. "You'll do wonderfully," Rose assured her. "Just speak from your heart, like you always do." Inside the house, Victoria was helping Elijah arrange refreshments for after the ceremony. Their unlikely friendship had been one of the most surprising developments of the past months. Victoria's organizational skills and business contacts, paired with Elijah's deep community knowledge and carpentry expertise, had proven a powerful combination for the restoration efforts. "Mom seems different here," Lily observed, watching through the window as Victoria laughed at something Elijah said. A genuine laugh, not the polite social one Lily had grown up hearing. "She is different," Rose agreed. "Or perhaps she's finally becoming who she was meant to be all along, before your father's influence." The front door opened, and Victoria emerged carrying a tray of lemonade. "The others should be arriving soon. Lily, did you decide if you want to wear the blue dress or the yellow one for the ceremony?" "The yellow one," Lily replied. "It's happier." Victoria smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Something that happened more frequently these days. "Yellow it is, then." As they shared lemonade on the porch, watching neighbors begin to gather in the community park across the street, Lily felt a contentment she hadn't known was possible. The weight of secrets and pretense that had defined her childhood at the mansion was gone, replaced by something more authentic if less polished. "Have you heard from Dad?" she asked suddenly, the question catching both Victoria and Rose by surprise. Victoria set down her glass carefully. "His lawyers called yesterday. He's offered another plea deal to the prosecutors." "Will he go to jail?" Lily's voice was small but steady. "Yes, sweetheart. For a few years at least," Victoria answered honestly. "But he'll have the chance to rebuild his life afterward, if he chooses to." Lily absorbed this information quietly. Her feelings about her father remained complicated. Anger at his actions mingled with memories of bedtime stories and piggyback rides. Maybe when he gets out he could help with the restoration projects. He knows a lot about building things. Victoria and Rose exchanged a glance, both moved by Lily's capacity for forgiveness. "That would be his choice to make," Victoria said gently. "But it's kind of you to think of that possibility." Across the street, Andrea Wilson had arrived with several city council members who had championed the reform of property laws in the wake of the Carson scandal. The groundbreaking ceremony would officially launch the construction of the Riverside Community Workshop, a facility where young people could learn carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, and other skills from experienced neighborhood craftspeople like Elijah. "Time to get ready," Rose announced, standing up. "The future awaits, and it won't build itself." An hour later, Lily stood before the gathered crowd, her yellow dress bright against the ceremonial shovel she held. Beside her, Elijah beamed with pride as Victoria adjusted the microphone to Lily's height. "3 months ago," Lily began, her voice small at first but gaining strength, "I thought I knew what was important in life. I lived in a big house with fancy things, and I didn't really understand that some of those things came at a cost to others." The crowd listened intently, unusual quiet given to the words of a child. "Then I met Mr. Elijah," Lily continued, smiling up at him. He showed me that real treasure isn't in big houses or expensive things. It's in doing what's right, even when it's hard. It's in standing up for people who need help. It's in building things that last, like friendships and communities. She gestured to the vacant lot behind her, where architectural renderings displayed the planned workshop. This place is going to help kids like me learn how to build things with their hands. Mr. Elijah says that when you build something yourself, you understand its value better. I think that's true for communities too. When we build them together, we value them more. Victoria blinked back unexpected tears as she watched her daughter speak with a wisdom beyond her years. Rose squeezed her hand supportively. So today we're not just breaking ground for a building, Lily concluded. We're continuing to build our community, and I'm really happy to be part of it. Thank you. Applause erupted as Elijah stepped forward, with Lily, both pushing the ceremonial shovel into the earth to officially begin the project. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment, a small white girl and an elderly black man, together turning soil for a new beginning. After the ceremony, as people mingled and enjoyed refreshments, a local reporter approached Victoria. Mrs. Carson, there are rumors that you might be considering a run for city council next year. Any comment? Victoria looked startled. I haven't made any such plans. She absolutely should, Rose interjected, joining the conversation. The city could use someone with Victoria's organizational skills and newfound ethical compass. Mother, Victoria protested, embarrassed. Just planting seeds, Rose smiled innocently before moving on to chat with other guests. Later, as the sun began to set and the gathering wound down, Lily found herself sitting on Elijah's workshop steps with a piece of cake, watching the adults clean up. Penny for your thoughts, Miss Lily, Elijah said, settling beside her with a groan that spoke of aging joints. I was just thinking about my birthday, Lily replied. How everything changed because you came to my party. Elijah chuckled. I'd say things changed because you were brave enough to invite me, knowing some folks wouldn't like it. Do you think my dad will ever understand why what he did was wrong? Lily asked, the question that had been weighing on her mind all day. Elijah considered this carefully. I can't say for certain. Some folks get set in their ways, see the world only how they want to see it. But others, like your mama, they can surprise you. They can change when given the chance to see things differently. I hope he changes, Lily said quietly. Me too, Miss Lily, Elijah agreed. For his sake as much as anyone's. Across the yard, Victoria was helping the last volunteers pack up tables. Seeing Lily and Elijah deep in conversation, she paused, struck by the unlikely bond between them. A friendship that had ultimately changed the course of so many lives, including her own. Rose joined her, following her gaze. Who would have thought, she mused, that your daughter's innocent birthday invitation would lead to all this? She's always seen people more clearly than I have, Victoria admitted. I was so focused on maintaining our position, our image, I forgot to look for the humanity in others, or in myself. It's never too late to learn, Rose said, linking her arm through her daughter's. And you're catching up quickly. As dusk fell over Riverside, the small group gathered on Elijah's porch for one last toast. Victoria, Rose, Lily, Elijah, and Andrea, the unlikely allies who had become something of a family through shared purpose. To new beginnings, Andrea proposed, raising her glass. And to remembered lessons, Elijah added. To justice, Victoria contributed. To second chances, Rose smiled. Lily thought for a moment before adding her own toast. To treasures, she said finally. The kind that really matter. As their glasses clinked in the gathering twilight, Lily felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The path ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges as her father's case proceeded, as the community rebuilding efforts faced inevitable setbacks, as she herself grew and changed. But for perhaps the first time in her young life, she was exactly where she was meant to be, surrounded by people who valued truth and kindness above power and possessions, and that, she decided, was the greatest birthday gift she could have ever received.